afternoon. I'm Cassie Bruin, AA New York State's Associate Director of Education, and I would like to welcome you to our Spec X webinar, AC472 and AC478 Accreditations for Improving Quality and Success in Metal Building Design and Construction with Greg West, Lori Rain, Walter Mershon, and Dan Helm of IAS. We want to thank them and IAS for presenting this program. We ask that you keep your microphones muted and video cameras off during the program. This webinar has been approved for 1 HSW/LU. To receive your credit, you are required to be present for the entire program. Zoom will be recording your attendance as part of the verification process. Put your first and last name in your Zoom profile and complete the CE evaluation to receive your continued credits. The evaluation link will be posted in the chat box and emailed to you at the end of the program, and it must be returned by 5 p.m. tomorrow. We will report AIA members' attendance to AIA CES, and we will email attendance certificates to non-members. Questions and participation throughout the session are encouraged. If you have a content question, use the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you have any technical issues or have a question about the webinar itself, use the chat box and Mike and I will do our best to answer you during the program. The disclaimers are posted on the screen, and so are the learning objectives. Now it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Greg. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Greg West. I'm a vice president with IAS, and I'm working out of our office in Brea, California, which is Southern California. And it's good to have you all here today for this webinar. Next screen, please. So our learning objectives for today, we're going to first of all learn a little bit about the trends in metal building construction. They're being used for all kinds of things now, certainly a lot more than just airplane hangars. We're also going to learn about 2 accreditation programs, AC472 and AC478, and how architects can use those to select qualified and competent companies to work with them. We're also going to learn about how to specify accredited companies, where you can find them, and a little bit about the accreditation process that we go through with them to accredit them. And then we'll answer your questions at the end of the presentation as well. So let's go to the next slide, please. We do have 3 primary presenters today. The first one's actually going to be Lori Rain there in the middle. And Laura works here in Southern California with me. And we work on the education side and promotions and do a lot of different things for IAS, and working with all the different accreditation programs that we have here. We're also going to be having Walter Mershon speak. Walter is a licensed engineer, and he's worked in, I think, over 20 different states. Got a lot of experience in the metal building industry. And then we also have Dan Halmy, and Dan's company, Halmy Builders, is actually an accredited company. We can talk a little bit about it from their perspective. Dan has also been in the board in the past for the Metal Building Contractors and Erectors Association, and he and I were actually at the AIA annual conference this year together, talking to architects about these programs as well. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick, since this is the AIA for the state of New York, you may have heard of one of our other programs if you do work in New York City, and that is the IAS Special Inspection Agency Accreditation Program. So we've been working with New York City for a number of years, accrediting companies that do special inspections in the city. With that, let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Laura.
Thanks so much for the introductions, Greg. We're going to start off this morning or afternoon, depending where you're joining us from, talking about growth in the metal building industry. So as Greg mentioned, the metal building industry has really grown to become a significant participant and contributor in the broader construction industry. In 2020 alone, the metal building industry constructed more than 300 million square feet of space, which represents 1/3 of the low-rise non-residential market across the US. And financially, this represents $2.6 billion in steel shipments. So in the past, as we know, metal buildings were relegated for construction of things like warehouses and airplane hangars. But today, due to lower costs, energy efficiency, the sustainability efforts, and design innovations, metal buildings are trending everywhere, from everything from car dealerships, schools, churches, strip malls, you name it. This growth has really opened up more opportunities for anybody to come and participate in this work. You, as architects, need the confidence in the competence of these companies that are producing the metal building systems and the companies that are erecting them as well. This is where accreditation comes in, because accreditation will ensure that the metal building construction industry has a high standard of best practices that promote safety, training, quality, and consistency for the manufacture and assembly of the metal building systems. The metal building industry has worked with the leading US accreditation body, International Accreditation Service, IAS, to develop a system which includes these 2 accreditation programs we're going to be talking about today. These 2 programs are really what sets the bar and independently verifies the competence of these companies. The first accreditation program we're going to be talking about today is AC472, and it's for companies that design and manufacture the metal building systems. The second accreditation program we're going to be talking about, AC478, is for companies that construct and erect or assemble the metal buildings themselves. So a little bit of background about us, IAS. IAS is an independent, nonprofit, internationally recognized accreditation body that is regularly evaluated for compliance with international standards by peer accrediting organizations worldwide. We have over 18 accreditation areas, everything ranging from testing labs, inspection agencies, fabricators, metal building manufacturers, metal building assemblers, and many others. IAS must comply and operate to the requirements of an ISO IEC standard 17011. This 17011 standard specifies requirements for the competence, consistent operation, and impartiality of accreditation bodies assessing and accrediting conformity assessment bodies. IAS is also a 501c registered body and a wholly owned subsidiary of the International Code Council known as ICC. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with ICC because they are the leading global source of model codes and standards and building safety solutions that include everything from product evaluation, accreditation, technology, training, certification. These ICC codes, standards, and solutions are used to ensure safe, affordable, and sustainable communities and buildings worldwide. They're also a nonprofit professional organization and a leader in the building construction industry worldwide with over 64,000 members. So most US communities and many global markets choose the international codes because they've provided the highest level of safety in the world for more than 90 years. And nearly 2 billion people worldwide are impacted by ICC's building safety codes. So what is accreditation? To give you a little bit of a background, accreditation is defined as the independent third-party assessment of an organization against recognized standards to determine if their processes or services complies with the requirements of that standard. IAS accreditation is used by organizations to improve the quality and technical capability of their services. IAS has worked with metal building assemblers, metal building manufacturers, industry professionals, and building departments to develop many widely accepted accreditation programs, including AC478, AC473, and AC472. Accreditation with IAS is recognized by federal, state, and local governmental bodies. What IAS accreditation does not constitute is an endorsement or recommendation for use of a particular accredited entity. Accreditation also does not cover the product or the specific design of the performance or the characteristic of the assembly. What accreditation does provide is evidence of demonstrated competence and compliance with industry benchmarks. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Walter, who's going to talk about the accreditation criteria.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome everyone. The accreditation criteria, as Laura defined, we developed it for each IAS program separately, and it provides guidelines for implementing performance. So when we do an assessment of an organization, whether it be a manufacturer or an assembler, there's several guidelines that are required, and when we come in and do the assessment, we're looking to verify that the organization is following those guidelines and implementing to perform to meet the codes, as well as provide a quality product to the customer. So IAS assessors use this accreditation criteria, and they're different for each program, but the reference codes and standards that the applications are seeking accreditation to, as well as we've developed and adopted these through public hearings. And actually, IAS is right now in the process next month of having one of these where changes get made to these accreditation programs based on somebody wanting to modify something or change it. It goes through this hearing and it gets voted on, and it either gets passed or changed, or it gets rejected and needs further research to see if it really needs to be applied or not. Next screen. So the first one we're going to talk about, as Laura mentioned, is AC472, and this is for the metal building manufacturing organizations, where they actually fabricate from plate or cold form materials to the finished product to ship and be assembled by the AC478 groups. Next screen. A little bit more about IAS. It's an international accreditation service, and it's a subsidiary of ICC, who develops all or produces and maintains all the building codes and requirements throughout the country. And they're based in Chicago, and IAS is a subsidiary of ICC. The AC472 program was worked together for some time with MBMA, who's the Metal Building Manufacturers Association. Back in around 2000, MBMA used it was actually the same program was followed through with AISC, and in the back of the old steel manuals, there was a quality program for metal building manufacturers. And that's where this started. And at that time, AISC didn't want to follow through with it anymore. They still have the heavy manufacturers program, but the metal building program specifically was dropped by AISC, and that IAS helped MBMA pick it up. So what is AC472? It's the most comprehensive quality assurance program of its kind. It's focused on metal building manufacturers, and it goes through to verify that there is a quality program in place. It's documented, and everyone in that organization understands it, follows it, and everything that's done is documented to verify that what they have done is satisfying and meeting the criteria of AC472. Welds are documented, the operators are trained, and they have their accreditations, and the material that's purchased satisfies the codes. And when they get the material, the material satisfies what they actually ordered to be performed to make the product. Accreditation programs for manufacturers operate under a documented, again, it's a documented management system. It's clearly defined what is required and how you have to satisfy and meet these requirements. IS as an agency conducts a yearly inspection. It's indicated to be unannounced, but in reality, they're announced a couple weeks in advance just so that the assessor doesn't get to the job or the manufacturing facility and everyone's on vacation or out of the office. So they do know we're coming, as well as there's a management system that that manufacturer has documented and puts together that tells the assessor how they do things, how they follow the procedures, how they document them, how they keep records. And this procedure or quality manual tells us how they do it, so we know what they're supposed to be having as far as record keeping and documentation. As well as IAS doing this assessment on a yearly basis, they also have to hire a third-party inspection agency that comes in twice a year and inspects their work and documentation and record keeping. So they actually get accredited or reviewed, assessed 3 times a year, once by IAS and twice by the third party. What are we looking for? Order documentation. What does the metal building manufacturer gets an order from usually a builder or an erector that's buying it for a customer. So they have to tell us what's required, or tells the manufacturer what they want: building size, width, length, eave height, roof slopes, canopies, facades, whatever else they're wanting, panels, what kind of panels, insulated or just plain, and insulation. Design and detailing to ensure that the code requirements through engineering are maintained. Engineers have training records, they've got education, they have programs that they're using that are designed and used properly. The raw material that's being used is required to be traced for type and grade to ensure that the product is being made from the right material. Quality assurance programs and staff are licensed engineers and certified welders and inspectors. So every organization has to have a certified welding inspector within the organization that is checking all the 100% welding checks on everything, and the licensed engineers are licensed in the states where the projects are going so that they can sign and seal them to ensure that they're done properly. And in addition to that, there is an engineer and responsible charge, and they'll have several engineers, both licensed and unlicensed, that are designing jobs, and they're all getting approved through a licensed engineer for the state of which the building is being assembled for. Next screen. The benefits to the architects. The architect and owner have confidence that the building's being adhered to the most comprehensive quality assurance programs, and that it's being done properly with people that are trained to do what they're doing, and the knowledge and experience, as well as the procedures, are followed and being traced, and can verify that it is being done properly by the right people. Each accreditation manufacturer's got to demonstrate specific and detailed quality control requirements, documented. We do not accept, well, that's the way we do it. It's got to have evidence that it is actually being done during these assessments. And so we're verifying that there's procedures and documentation that says, here's what we do. And then there's documentation that says, this is proof we've done it that way. Next screen. Again, more benefits. The AC472 provides an extra level of assurance that your building's supplier, engineering, order, design are all being checked and have a high quality of standard, and are evaluated by by IAS as well as the third-party inspection agency. Building officials can deem AC472 accredited manufacturers as approved fabricators as defined in Chapter 17. This allows the building officials to accept AC472 as a manufacturing organization that's accredited, and they don't have to follow. They can allow this to handle the requirements of being inspected for every job going through every facility. They take our AC472 accreditation and say, okay, we don't have to come in and bother every manufacturing facility for every project. We accept the IAS accreditation to cover those requirements. Doesn't mean that they don't have to, but they can allow it to take place. So allowing only accredited suppliers, part of the criteria as well is that every manufacturer has a list of who they're buying it from, and they evaluate them on a regular basis and document their evaluations. And so we're looking at that when we're in there doing these assessments as well. It assures that the building components are designed by professional engineers and demonstrate knowledge of building systems and applicable codes. So the codes of the project are verified, the engineers' licenses are verified, and they're sealing these projects and drawings and any calculations that they perform. And they have records of everything that's going out of that facility to ensure that everything has gone through the same steps to be verified that it is a quality product being delivered. There are some of the references and specific language. IAS AC472 is simply that. It's an inspection program of the manufacturers of metal building systems. It tries to stay within that program. We have other programs that are outside that manufacture sheds or storage racks, and that's a different program altogether. This is solely for metal building manufacturers. And submittals, you can get a copy of the AC472 criteria that shows all the different steps and every thing that gets checked when we're doing an assessment. And the qualifications of a qualified metal building system fabricator is accredited under the IAS program for this AC472. They will get a certificate when they become accredited. It's online, and you can always go out there and look at it or find out if a company is or is not, or if it's still deemed valid, if it's up to date. All these things are on the IAS website. And one thing that's been added to this program here in the last 4 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, is there's also a procedure for them to be accredited to do ultrasound testing to meet the criteria of the code. And they have to have all the documentation and record keeping that it's getting done. So when we go into facilities that perform this UT inspection, we're looking for documentation, training, and verifying that the equipment is accurate to be doing the ultrasound testing. One thing that's metal building personnel, typically you will use thinner material. The webs are 10 gauge or smaller, or in that range. So the UT doesn't become a requirement by the code because it's 3/16 or greater. But all the welds that are required, you know, the code allows you to do a certain percentage versus 100%. So all this documentation is reviewed during the accreditation or assessment. So the IAS accreditation program is the most comprehensive. This is something that's written by one of the MBMA presidents, as it audits the integrity of the design, the engineering, manufacturing processes. Accreditation is actually a prerequisite for an MBMA membership. So to be a part of MBMA, Metal Building Manufacturers Association, they have to also be an IAS A4 or AC472 accredited. Tony Bacqua with MBMA, the stringent reviews that AC472 requires gives builders, owners, and specifiers both assurance and confidence that the accredited manufacturers of their systems meet the consistent quality standards in engineering and manufacturing. These people aren't required to say these things. They stand behind it because the program has done great things over the years for the metal building industry. 30, 40 years ago, it was a fly-by-night organization building or welding parts and pieces, and now they have to go through this quality program. So after a project is fabricated in a metal building manufacturer, the accreditation for the AC478 is the assemblers who put the metal buildings up. This program is recently added, and we do the same thing. We'll go in there on a yearly basis and review the assembler out in the field as well as in his office, going through his quality manual. And then out in the field, we go to a job site and review a project that's under assembly, to be the people that are putting it up know what they're doing, that they have a certain amount of knowledge and experience, and the managers at the site. There's a certain number of managers for everyone that's out there. We'll go through this a little bit more in depth going forward. So IAS, again, worked with MBMA for the AC472, and they've worked with MBCEA for this program. MBCEA is a Metal Building Contractors and Erectors Association. Again, they were founded in 1968, and they have, between the two organizations, put together a criteria that satisfies that a quality program is being followed. What is AC478? Just like 472, it's a primary document used to accredit the inspection agents, inspection programs of contractors and builder erectors. AC478 is an IAS accreditation criteria. It lists the inspection requirements. Again, you can see this criteria online. And the AC478 accreditation attention is focused on assembly procedures, inspections, quality assurance, training, regiments, and commitment to safety. There's OSHA requirements, there's training requirements, inspections to verify that bolts are tightened, welds are proper. If there are any field welding, that the welders out in the field are accredited and they're certified inspectors watching that as well. Next screen. It's well known that the lowest bidder awards may lead to cost overruns. Everybody in this industry knows that if you go to the cheapest price, you may not be getting the best quality. In the long run, it's going to cost more. It's just like everything in this world today. So this is trying to stop that from happening, that these organizations are accredited and are producing a quality product, as well as being assembled properly. It sets the standards for best practices. Safety and quality are critical in facilitating positive outcomes. And IAS 478 accreditation establishes an industry standard to identify those players doing the right thing. That there's safety and training and quality. It's the three biggest departments of this criteria. What's reviewed? Excuse me. Documented safety and training programs, that all the employees have a safety program that they're following, and they're trained to do the things that they're performing out in the field. Documented management system. It's a manual that the assembler organization puts together to tell us how they ensure that these things are being done, and shows us documented evidence that they actually are occurring. Job site specific assembly plans. So when they start a job, they have a plan of attack going forward. Where are they going to lay material? How's it going to be laid out? How do they, if there is an accident, how do they get to a hospital, or who do they contact? And job safety analysis for every project. It goes over the steps that they're going to follow to ensure safety. The benefits, again, to the architects, developers, designers, and owners can have a greater confidence when the metal building is assembled at an AC472 manufacturer and erected by an AC478 organization that has followed all the requirements of these criteria: safety, training, quality program, level of assurance. So you're not just getting, you can make a great product, and if it's put together terrible, it's no better than anything else. And if you know how to put something together, but it's coming out and every piece has to be fixed, it's not going to be a good product at the end of the day for the customer. So it's an assurance that an independent, nationally recognized accreditation organization has evaluated this assembler across multiple areas of erection, safety, training. And that's what IAS does. They go in and verify that they have a program, they're following it, and they're meeting the criteria. Verification that the assembler has the required insurance coverage. We verify that they are insured to meet the requirements. Assurance that there's a quality improvement process in place to continually improve services. It's not just a matter of having a quality program, but they have to constantly tweak it to get better, and processes and procedures get revised and changed, but the continuity continually improve these services to the customer. And confirmation that assemblers have processes in place to meet the changes within the industry. Again, you're constantly improving your services because there's changes within the industry and the codes that require everybody to keep performing at a better level. Benefits to the architects: a higher level of confidence, again, in the quality, safety, and services offered by an assembler. Confidence that the assembler has the appropriate protections in place to ensure staff competence and supervision, physical safety, privacy, handling of complaints. That, there's going to be problems out in the field. I mean, it's just going to happen, but that they handle them properly, they take care of them, and they document these so that they can look back at them and verify that it's not going to happen again. And assurance that accredited assemblers subject themselves to an on-site assessment. We don't just go look at their manuals. We actually get to a job site on a assessment and talk to the gentlemen or women that are putting them up, and ask them questions about, what do they know about the quality program? What's their training records? And if, we'll ask them for their OSHA or certificates. Just random checks just to make sure that everybody is really doing the right thing. So what is some of the specific language? AC478, again, it is the assembly of metal buildings. We don't get into the high rises and things in this program. 478 accreditation certificate shows that they have met the requirements of the AC478, and it's dated so that, if it runs out of date, they have to renew it and get it redone. But we go every year to ensure that they're continuously performing the way they're supposed to. And then assembly of the building and accessories, if applicable, should be performed by an IS accredited assembler in accordance with AC478. Again, this is all available online at the IAS online website. Laura? So something that was mentioned by one of the presidents of the assembler: meaningful industry accreditations for installers are our best tool to specify quality throughout the process. it's not just one item in the assembly of a metal building, because there's so many parts and pieces and different, you know, from the heavy steel to the light thin panels to accessory items and everything else. They all, if the project has it, it's being verified that there's personnel that are qualified to install and erect, and that they know what they're doing. How do you identify IAS accredited companies? Just like the 472 for manufacturers, you go onto the website and you can verify that an organization is accredited, either 472 or 478. And right there, you can see the assemblers. You'll go to the next screen and hit the important search for it, and you can view their certificate. This is just a typical certificate for an AC478. And you could see it, and they have their documentation, their certificate, and the designations they would typically will have on their sales brochures and business cards and everything else. But the IAS logos for 472 and 478, the 472 would be on the actual final assembly drawings of the metal building manufacturer. And the 478, they'll have the stickers on their helmets and brochures and verificate. They'll have their certificate in their office on the walls or on plaques. And just an example of a few accredited companies throughout the country. They get added in a few. This was an early list. I'm not so sure if it's really kept up to date, but there's several hundred in the 472, and I think somewhere in the 25 to 30 range for the 478. Just conclusion, the best thing, you know, from our perspective and in the industry would be to specify both 472 and 478 in the specifications for the project. That ensures that the company that's designing and fabricating the parts are qualified and accredited, and that the building will be assembled, the parts and pieces will be assembled in the field by a competent organization from the 478 program. Resources, contacts.
Next slide. All right, this is Greg West again, coming back to you. And at this point in the webinar, we'd like to do some Q&A. Walter, thank you so much for your presentation on both programs. And thank you, Laura. We're definitely going to be bringing you in for some of the Q&A here as well. But I also want to bring up Dan Halmy for one of our first questions. Dan, as I mentioned earlier, you're actually a metal building assembler, Halmy Builders, and your company did get accredited early on. And tell us a little bit about your experience with accreditation, and why did you decide to pursue accreditation?
Well, thanks, Greg. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, as Greg mentioned, I am a contractor, longtime family business. We've done metal buildings since, well, about around 2000, we started doing metal buildings. We are we're a general contractor, but we have our own erection crews. And when we first started hearing about this program, we were pretty early on member of NBCEA, and we got really interested because we do a lot of public work, and the competition that we're working against, we can see that basically their interest in quality was a lot less than ours. So we wanted to provide a quality product. At the same time as we recognized how the manufacturers were approaching quality with their accreditation programs all the way back to when it was AISC and the MB quality systems, and how that moved into the IAS AC472. So when we first started hearing about AC478, it was something that was pretty easy for me to get interested for long term of the program. And we went through the early work, got accredited, and that's probably been 6 or 7 years ago now. So that was right at the beginning of the program. Since then, I've had a lot more involvement with the program, not just because of our accreditation, but also the NBCA asked me to step up and become the chair of the accreditation committee. So my involvement and my awareness of the program has become quite a bit greater, I guess you could say. And in that, we work closely with Greg and IAS. And I would say, going back to even this, is some of the decision making has just been, I guess, exemplified with this, that we are all that much more aware of why we made the decisions to become accredited. And it just makes so much more sense for the industry altogether, that this accreditation just becomes more and more the basis of going forward for metal building erectors. And so as we even talk about that today, is so much to the architects to get this program out there, to talk to you guys about it, answer your questions about it, and really like to see that this becomes the the standard for architects to specify for AC478 accreditation and AC472. But the new program here is AC478, and so many people are unaware of it and what it actually does for the industry. So hopefully that answers your question, Greg.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dan. One thing I wanted to point out, something that you alluded to, I think, a little bit, but also that Walter mentioned, is that, when a company gets accredited, that doesn't mean they're accredited forever. So IS, it's a continuous thing where they have to stay up on their requirements and their ongoing assessments from IS. So, that's one of the reasons to look at somebody's accreditation certificate, to go online with the IS website and search for these companies and find out if they're still accredited or not. So it is an ongoing thing. Walter, can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've found when you've done assessments of the AC472 program?
Well, the AC472 is the manufacturer's. We'll go through the facility and look around and verify that welds are looking properly. And we'll find undercut and underfill and a lot of times, and it gets marked up and sent back to be fixed. But in general, most the welds are good. The material, we verify that what's written on it's a kind of a multi-step. The facility has to write up a purchase order. We want to see that purchase order that says they're buying ASTM 572 or 81011 or anything else. Okay, show us that the documentation that came from the mill says that that's what that material is, and that it's documented and it's segregated by parts, because some of that thin material is hard to define. Is it 10 gauge? Is it 8 gauge? Is it 6 gauge or whatever? So they have it in bundles and they're all marked up, and they keep it very cleanly organized so that it doesn't get mixed up. One thing we do also look at is all the tools that they use on the floor, tapes and squares and protractors or micrometers are all being checked and have documented evidence that they get checked on a regular basis. And that some of the bigger tools are used and sent out to accreditation companies to be verified that they are correct, so that they can use those to check the tools that are used every day. So it's not just people's training, but it's a lot of other things that go into this throughout the whole organization. But training and safety and quality are the biggest parts of it.
Thanks, Walter. Same question, if you don't mind me asking, for the AC478 program. What are some of the things you might find when you're doing an assessment of companies under that program?
Some of the things we found, the personnel haven't followed. There's a requirement in the 478 for certain types of training, and some of the personnel in the field haven't finished up on that training. So we verify to make sure that there's a process in place that's, the company will say that they'll have all these people trained within the first year, and we'll find a straggler or two every once in a while, or an OSHA requirement of OSHA 10 or OSHA 30. They may not have it up to date, but these are things we find, but we don't find them everywhere all the time. Or, the bolts haven't been properly inspected. Turning up method is commonly used, but they still have to be checked to verify that they're installed properly. And then, safety, are they tied off all the time when they're up in the bucket or up on the roof? That's a big deal. If people getting hurt, wearing their gloves to make sure they're not getting cut or anything else. So those probably are the biggest things that we find on a basis, if there is anything.
That sounds good. And I guess, Dan, let me ask you, with the accreditation requirements of 478 and everything that's looked at under the program, would you say that the accreditation program can help you keep on track with your jobs and for meeting deadlines and things like that?
Yeah, it definitely does, for so many different reasons. Just like Walter mentioned, that a lot of these things get applied from what you learn from job after job. If you do have an issue where maybe you didn't get an inspection and it's caused you a holdup, there's so much more awareness going forward from the corrections that you've made in a company, that you don't have to continue to learn the same thing over and over again. And as a contractor, we do have, you bring on new employees, you bring on, create new crews. But when you have the accreditation program, you do kind of have a basis of this is how we do it. Not only from a standpoint of what's been documented, but that does get driven down into the crew members and the employees that are actually putting the work up. And it does help you through time, that you don't have to continue having to learn the same lessons over and over again. And any company does that to some extent, but with the documentation and control effort that you do under the accreditation program, it really just helps the company. You rise to a different level, in other words, that you put more awareness and attention and doing it right.
That sounds good. And I also know that, when an architect is looking for an accredited company, especially an assembler, your companies go all over the U.S. If there's not an accredited company in your area, I know that you certainly do travel, and so if you're looking for an accredited AC478 company, you can go on the IS website and put out a request, get some quotes from the different companies, and more than likely you'll find one that can come to your area. Also, I know that the specification programs like the BSD Spec Link, that's a program that's put out, I believe, through CSI. They do provide the specification language for both programs, 472 and 478, in their software. And I believe ARCOM may include them as well. But we also do have the specification language for either one of these programs on the IS website. And I know that Walter showed that on a couple of slides earlier. By the way, we are going to have the recording of this program up on the IS website. And I think we can probably send a notification to everyone once we get it up there. Laura, did you have anything else to add that you wanted to say?
Just wanted to actually drag this over and walk everybody through how to do those searches on the website, because I know in that video we have in the PowerPoint, it goes really fast. So one more time for everybody, if you go to our website, iasonline.org, and you can click this drop down under accreditation programs. You've got our metal building assemblers and metal building systems programs that we discussed today on the webinar right here on the right hand side at the top. And I'm just going to go ahead and select AC478 to demonstrate this for everybody. And when you get to any of our program web pages, there's these three sections across kind of like the middle of any page. So when you go all the way over to the right hand side, it actually opens up a like search function for you. So if you're looking for anything specific, you can kind of narrow down your search, but sometimes it's better to just keep it broader so that way you get the full list. And when you hit the search button at the bottom, it'll actually tell you a comprehensive list of all of our accredited customers to, you know, whichever program it is that you're looking at. And this chart's really nice because it gives you, you know, all the basic information. If they're coming up for a renewal, it'll show you the expiry date as well. And these buttons on the side that when you hover over them, they turn from a dark blue to a light blue. They actually are links that go directly to those certificates we showed you earlier. So for instance, if I select this one and open it up, it'll actually show you this certificate and all of the details as to what this company is accredited to do. So just nice resource for you and for anybody who's looking for, you know, accredited AC472 or AC478 companies.
Thanks, Lori. That was good information. Walter or Dan, do you have any other comments or things that you'd like to share?
No, just appreciate the interest, and hopefully we've shown you what is in every program is on a high level, but just go out there and online, if you want, go out there online where Laura just was, and you could go into the center button, I believe, and documentation, and you can see the criterias.
Yes, let me go ahead and show that as well while you're talking about it, Walter. So that's going to be the second tab over instead of the third, this important documents section. On both of the pages, it'll give you the specification language like we mentioned, as well as the accreditation criteria that we also talked about, and a bunch of other you know helpful documents that may be of interest to you to read through. There's a ton of information and a lot of resources on each of these web pages, so by all means, please feel free to come check them out and let us know if you have any questions. We've got all of our contact information up here, as well as a contact at the MBMA and MBCEA, and you can always reach out to us at ISInfo as well.
Dan, any further comments? I would like you to mention briefly, Dan, about your experience at the AIA annual conference and in terms of the responses that we were getting from architects there.
Yeah, I guess that kind of goes right into my comment that I was going to have anyway. But as Greg just mentioned, we were at the San Francisco AIA conference here a couple months ago, and we met with many different architects and had good conversation with them. And really what I guess my point goes to this is that the reasons for both of these programs really come down to the end user and the client that the architect is also working for. And many times it's actually, you know, the architect's putting a lot of effort into developing a project from a design side for their customer. They want to see it, you know, close as possible to be done the way they expected on paper. You know, so what we're seeing is that these programs align with that. It gives you the best chance of getting your job done with the least amount of hassle and most accurately to what was expected through these programs. Of course, that's what quality is doing it to the expectations and these are quality assurance programs. And, there is quite a bit of built up angst from architects using metal buildings, because it does kind of seem like to many of them that it is an uncontrolled territory. They basically have to accept it's just going to be done the way it's going to be done. Some of them accept that, the buildings are going to leak. They're going to be a problem. The customer, it's maybe even a lower class product, which all that is unfounded and untrue using quality programs. Metal buildings are a good solution. In many cases, they are the highest or the best solution possible for the customer for what their needs are. And if you could just solve some of these problems about installation and manufacturing, which both of these programs, that's their ultimate intent, that we learn from what we're doing and we do a better job back to the end customer, and ultimately for the architect, that they have confidence that you're going to get what you like to get out of these projects that you're doing with metal buildings.
All right, thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Well, with that, again, I'd like to say that we will have the webinar up on our website at some point in the near future. Of course, there's our contact information. If you have any questions about either of the programs or IAS, we would definitely like to ask you again to please specify IAS, AC472 and AC478 companies. And thank you for joining us today, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much to our speakers and to IAS. We appreciate you presenting today's webinar and for supporting AA New York State as an allied partner. Please remember you must submit your CE evaluation by 5 p.m. tomorrow. I just sent it over in the chat, and you will also be receiving an email with the link as well. Thank you so much for attending, and have a great day. Bye.